Well, welcome everybody. My name is Debbie Maltz-Varland, and I'm the Education Manager at Jewish Family Service. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Jewish Family Service. Since 1943, Jewish Family Service has played a vital role in responding to the constantly changing challenges and stresses of everyday life experienced by individuals and families in Greater Cincinnati. Jewish Family Service is a nonprofit human service agency that strengthens lives of people in times of need by providing social services that guide them along their road to stability, self-reliance, and personal growth. Our services include aging and caregiver services, care management, emergency financial support, youth mentoring, the Heldman Family Food Pantry at our Barbash Family Vital Support Center, as well as mental health education. We serve without regard to religion, race, age, disability, sexual orientation, national origin, or ability to pay. This program tonight is part of our Alan R. Mack Mental Health Awareness and Educational Series. After learning the alarming statistics related to alcohol and drug use, we at JFS wanted to join community awareness efforts by bringing together experts in the field working on keeping our community safe and informed without judgment. This program started with some conversations about a year and a half ago. It's been a collaborative effort for the last year and a half or more with my friend Julie Buckner, the Start Talking program from the governor's office, Chief Tom Sinan, and the Amberley Police Chief Rich Wallace. And I have to take a minute to tell you about Chief Wallace. Not sure where he is. He's been an amazing partner from the beginning. I gave him a call, said this is what I'm thinking, this is what we want to do, and he said, I'm on board, let's do it. He got us connected with some speakers, with partners, with promotional items, and just was, are you here? I know you're here tonight. Are you in this room? He's out there. Wave. Thank you. And always offered up his office for us to meet for hours. So thank you. Along with Chief Wallace and Chief Sinan, the three of us would meet. I was in awe of their knowledge, and not just their knowledge and service, but their generosity, their dedication, their sincerity, and their kindness. And they were a big part of helping make this happen. Once Scotty and Dr. Nelson came on board, with Julie and Chief Sinan, we knew we had something really special for tonight. And it's finally here. Thank you all for coming. What a great night. This is a citywide program. Thank you to the many high school students, teachers, coaches, administrators, and chiefs of police from every district around the Greater Cincinnati area who helped support our efforts and recognize the importance of this topic and program. I want to acknowledge some other important people that we are thrilled are here in the audience. We have I'm not sure here yet, the coroner Lakshmi Samarko is here. Not here yet, is coming. The Heroin Task Force Commander Tom Fallon, FBI Agent Angela Byers. If you're here and I'm saying your name, please let's acknowledge, thank you for being here. And Dwight Richard, the Director of Operations of Lemire Healing Centers. Among all of you, it's just such a great thing to have everyone here coming together as a community. We hope that you can take advantage also with these community officials, stick around at the end of the program after the breakout sessions and get some coffee and some cookies and talk with these people. Also want to thank our funders, Jewish Foundation, the Jewish Federation, and United Way, our agency sponsor, Interim Healthcare, and also our sponsors for tonight, the Amberley Village Police and Fire Department, Lemire Healing Centers, and Hamilton County Heroin Coalition. Nice. It takes a village, a community. And a special thank you to our awesome JFS team, Linda Keene, Sherry Kaplan, and Hannah Gessendorf. Their expertise and work made this program come together. Now I'd like to introduce our MC for the night. Scotty Mays is a person in long-term recovery from drugs and alcohol. He just recently received his chemical dependency license through the state and is an alumni coordinator at Lemire Healing Center in Westchester. He is a recovery advocate in the Dayton and surrounding areas and deals hope wherever he goes. He is also a stand-up comedian who has performed at recovery events and the Funny Bone and Wiley's Comedy Joint in Dayton, Ohio. Recovery has opened multiple doors for him, and Scotty says there is no limit to what he can accomplish one day at a time. Thank you.
Thank you. Hold on a second. Hold on. Can we give Debbie an amazing round of applause? This woman is a beast. Thank you so much. Thank you. Oh, I'm grateful for this opportunity because I can't get a job anywhere else. It's the hair, right? Right? Yeah. You can't even get a job at Walmart with, I don't know if I just did that, but I apologize if I did. I've already ruined the evening, so. You can't get a job at Walmart with a shoplifting charge on your record from Walmart. So that's kind of weird and awkward. That's an awkward interview. It is. It is. So again, thank you everyone for being here. This is, where's all the kids? Kids, raise your hands. Kids! Everybody's like, God, this is going to be so boring. I can't believe you dragged me here. This is going to be awesome because there's pictures. Pictures. And I kind of ruined the surprise a little bit, but there's more than that. And there's these cool pens, and I didn't realize when I took it that it said this pen was stolen from a cop. So I'm just going to put all these right here. And if anybody wants one, help yourself. There's a lot of cops here tonight, and I was sweating. Woo! But they ran my name, and I don't have any warrants, so we're good for the evening. Yeah, anyway, seriously, my name is Scotty Mays. I'm a person in long-term recovery. What that means is I haven't had a drink or a drug since January 13th, 2016. It's truly a blessing to be where I'm at today, because honestly, I should be dead. All the friends that I drank and did drugs with, they're dead. Or they're on their way. For some reason, I was spared, and I was able to be up here today to share some experience, strength, and hope with y'all. Whatever it is you want to do with your life, whatever dreams you have, you can do it. It's not a joke. I wasted 25, 26 years of my life thinking that I could never do anything but be a landscaper or be a thief or be a liar. But there is definitely a better way of life today. Just a few announcements. I hope y'all got some grub out there. Those cookies are the bomb. Seriously, I have a new addiction now, so please eat the cookies or I will. Also, there are some evaluations on your table. If you could take the time to fill those out. That information is used in reports for funding for JFS, and it also just lets them know how they're doing or what they could do better, any suggestions you may have. Parents, give yourselves a hand tonight. Sorry, kids, you don't have any parents tonight. Okay. I'll stop making it weird, and we'll just get right to brass tacks on this. This first gentleman I'm going to bring up, his name is Dr. Nelson. This guy, I just met him, and I feel like I've known him my whole life. Just because he just told me what was wrong with me. We had a couch session right over here, and I just got done crying, and it felt good to process all that. So hopefully he can produce some tears in y'all. Don't suppress and detach, because that's all we ever did. Just let it roll. We don't have tissues though, because we don't do tissues. No dabbing it, just let it all out naturally. Anyway, Dr. Nelson.
Am I on now? Yeah, thank you. I don't know how many of you know about follicle envy, but when I met Scotty, I was like, oh, I wish. I wanted to go through real quick. When I was growing up, there was an advertisement on television, and it started like this. This is your brain. This is your brain on drugs. and it would be like really frying up, and then they go, any questions? And I had a lot of questions because I didn't know anybody like with a bird brain or an egg brain. And so I want to go through some things, and I'll go through them fairly quickly. But if you want the slides or if you have questions, I'm glad to give you those. There's 4 slides on here that represent, this is the difference between a normal healthy brain and a brain that's been infected by alcohol. This is what meth does to change it. And what's happening in these, you can see the neurons are not working in the same way. The brain really changes with these things. Now, what makes addiction so tricky is that once it gets its claws into you, even though you don't want to have those effects going on, it has hijacked your reward circuitry, and you, raise your hand if you've ever tried to lose weight. Raise your other hand if you ever tried to lose weight and failed. 95% of people who try to do weight loss fail, and it's because we're addicted to food. It hits that same reward pattern in the brain, but it turns on a signal that's like this loud, you know. And these drugs turn on a signal that's like, I won't even do it because the mic seems too loud anyway. You could probably turn it down a little, but it's like boom, and it's very hard to get out of that circuitry. So these are factors that lead to getting caught up into this kind of vortex of addiction. A lot of it has to do with genes. I've got a slide on that we've learned a lot over the last 10, 15 years. A lot of it has to do with environment and supports and who you listen to, who you ask for support, who you choose to be friends with, who you choose to say, you know, it's not worth the risk. And then once drugs become involved, they take over your brain, and they really do. Now, how does that happen? The reason a lot of dealers and a lot of corporations choose to target teenagers is the judgment center, this prefrontal cortex right here, the front of your brain, just above your eyes, is the part of the brain that gives you your best judgment. And for developmental reasons, that part of the brain doesn't really come online completely until you're about 18 to 25. In fact, you probably notice if you've ever wanted to get car insurance, it gets a lot cheaper at 25. Because once the brain matures, especially young men begin to drive much safer. Am I right, Tom? You don't see the same kind of accidents in people over 25 that you see in people under 25. And it's just because the judgment center isn't yet working. Normal brain, brain of an obese person, brain of somebody on cocaine, brain on alcoholic. See that red stuff is good activity. See how that gets washed out? The brain's not functioning in the same way that the brain gives you that judgment, the ability to make healthy decisions. This is a different graphic that shows as you get older, you get more and more knowledge and experience, and actually, for those of you my age, it's nice to see the wisdom go up because our brains actually get slower. In fact, about 25, 30, your ability to think quickly, efficiently, goes downhill. In fact, a lot of the real important scientific discoveries, people like Newton, people like Einstein, they did their best work before they were 30. What you get after that is wisdom. But here's part of the danger. See this exploration thing? When you're thinking, oh, you know, I want to see what the drug scene's about. What's that about? Is it cool? Is it not cool? What is it? So there's this natural curiosity that affects teenagers. That's kind of a different kind of curiosity, right? That's more common in people under 25 than it is over 25. To put it differently, this is what's going on in the adolescent brain. So you see self-control still under construction. And that's not a criticism. I mean, if you're a teenager, you're probably thinking, God, what a nerd this guy is. But this is just kind of the way things happen. You don't expect a 2-year-old to be able to talk with more than a few words. You don't expect an 8-month-old to be able to walk. And some of this, you have to give yourself time to let your brain mature in order to know you're making healthy decisions in your life. So, this is just a graphic that shows that There's a lot of peer pressure that tends to move people into activities, sometimes that they don't even want to do. One that scares me is this one right here, smoking. Because you look at these others, and here's drugs, then you get down and you see pressure for other things, but smoking and using drugs have really negative effects. So peer pressure, behavior, the school, the culture, your friends, people you admire. So what we know is if you practice ways of saying no or practice ways of avoiding danger, you actually do much better. The consequences of high drinking. This one really scared me when I first saw it. Every year, kids leave home, they often go to college or they go out on their own, and they don't realize if you drink a lot of alcohol quickly, it's so poisonous, you just fall over and die. And when kids are in a party with other friends and you fall over and you're now poisoned by the alcohol, they just think you've passed out or they think you're sleeping. And they don't call EMS. They don't ask for help, even though you're just maybe 30, 40 minutes from dying. And 1,700 young adults die every year from just drinking too much too quickly. 600,000 students are unintentionally injured because they're doing things like operating a car. That's a big number, 600,000. And then if you look at assaults, I can give you an example. I grew up in a little town in Oklahoma, and I have a younger sister, and one of her friends, his parents bought him a house. And so he had a house on Main Street, and they were going to college down the street. His best friend moved into the house with him with 5 other guys. They threw a kegger, right? You know what a kegger is? You buy a keg of beer, everyone's drinking beer. The boy who owned the house, his parents owned the house, got upset because his friend started inviting everybody to drive up on the lawn because there were lots of people showing up to this party, which was a bunch of 18, 19, and 20-year-olds. His friend just kind of like blew him off, said some things that were pretty rude, and it made this young man so angry that he walked in the house and got a rifle, a .22, and shot his best friend, dead. He would never have done that if he hadn't been drinking. It's not unusual that people drink and do stuff they would never do. So what happens? His best friend, these were guys who like went into each other's houses all the time. This guy was like a brother to him. He goes to prison for years and he's lost his friend because alcohol affected his judgment centers. And that's somebody I know. It's somebody I grew up with. This is the scariest slide I have. Now, it's maybe not scary for you, but as a physician, like if this was Ebola, our country would be on high alert. We would be going crazy trying to stop a virus from killing this many people. It starts out light in 2004, right through 2002. And as you watch this progress to 2014, because it's gotten a lot worse in the last 3 years, that came from the Center for Disease Control, and they've not done the last 3 years yet, but it looks a whole lot worse. There's nowhere on the map that's getting lighter, and those are people who are dying from opiates. About 40% is heroin, 60% is prescription drugs. So what's estimated to happen in what we're getting from 2016 is that number is going from about 45,000 up to somewhere close to 65,000. Alcohol, look at that. Alcohol is like way worse. I mean, I know we're all here concerned about heroin, but don't think for a minute that there's not things that are just as dangerous out there that we can't let down our guard. And then, anybody want to guess how many people die from cigarettes every year? Throw me a number. 101,000? 440,000. And guess who tobacco companies target? The probability of becoming addicted to these drugs with just one use, the first time you use it, it's got its claws in you and you won't escape it, 32%. There's a 1 in 3 chance if you smoke a cigarette, you're in the game and you're going to be buying cigarettes. Heroin's not as high as cigarettes. Guess why? Nicotine's more addictive than heroin. And tobacco companies not only find the perfect amount of nicotine to get you addicted, guess what they discovered? If they put a certain compound in cigarettes, they can get teenagers to smoke them. Guess what it is? It's a secret ingredient, but I found out they do this. Chocolate. For real. They put chocolate because chocolate addicts more kids. Cocaine is 17%, alcohol 15%. Things like cannabis, marijuana, anxiolytics, medicines that treat anxiety. So what's the average age that people start smoking? 13 to 15. Look at this. Nobody starts smoking after 20. When does the prefrontal cortex come online? Just after that. People who have full facility of their brain know smoking is really a bad idea. So guess who cigarette companies target? They call them future customers, and they have ad campaigns. In fact, this one was so effective. Philip Morris, the company that makes Camel cigarettes, did this stuff in the late 90s. They got so good at it, you could ask a 5-year-old kid who this guy is, and more kids knew who this was than knew who this was. That's how good they got at selling cigarettes to children. Now, why would they do that? Oh, not only that, they've been doing this for years. Like they've got Santa Claus here selling cigarettes. You gotta love that. I like this one. Just more question, Mom. Can you afford not to smoke? The baby's telling the mama to smoke. That's tricky. There's a doctor up there. A health cigar. These guys will lie to anybody. And then they also use sex. Tell me you don't see that there's like some sex stuff going on here. Because their brain, that's another part of the reward system. I don't know what smoking has to do with sex, but they want you to think somehow it's actually not, and then, here's more sex. This is about how sexy smoking cigarettes. That's Joe Camel after he smoked for about 20 years. In fact, he needs a respirator on there, because that's where it goes. You start at 15. If you smoke 1 to 2 packs, about 30 cigarettes a day, that's $550 a year. If you die at 65, because you're going to die 10 years younger. If you smoke, you're going to die 10 years before anybody else. It's really horrible. Cigarettes have gone up 300% over the last 20 years. So 2017, they're now $12. We could project that cigarettes will probably cost $36 a pack if they go up the way they have. Maybe they'll go down because they want to get you. But even if you just use the current price, that's $6,500 a year. In a lifetime, you're going to spend $250,000. And then if you do this higher price, the 36, not for the whole time, but just that it goes up over time, you'll spend $1 million on those cigarettes. What do you get from it? Lung problems, bad breath, all these cancers. Cancers in every single part of your body. That's the truth in advertising. The Grim Reaper, that's what cigarettes will give you. This is from the Center for Disease Control. The entire body is diseased from cigarettes. It kills 440,000 people a year. This is what, I had a patient, or not a patient, when you go to medical school, they give you a cadaver. My cadaver was a smoker. Trying to cut through this lung tissue was like cutting through a rock. It was like a charcoal briquette. And a normal healthy lung is like a sponge. It's like this soft, healthy thing. So this is what you're going to get. You're going to get aging. Oh, can you turn the lights down a little? Because you need to see, this is what happens if you smoke, how it destroys your body. I don't know anybody who wants to get older quicker, although I tell you, old's not too bad. I'm getting there. But you don't want to look older than you need to. This person is what their face would look like if they didn't smoke. This is what smoking does. This is like a computer that changes so you can see how smoking affects the body. And it's not just your face that it's affecting, it's your lungs, your heart, your liver, your kidneys. And drinking does the same thing. Alcohol has a toxic effect on everything in the body. So there's this thing called the drinking mirror. That's what she looks like now. This is what she would look like if she was a heavy drinker. Same thing here with these pictures. And if you look, there's a lot of people around who are struggling with addiction. And if you look at someone who's been drinking a lifetime, you'll see this. You don't have to believe this. Just walk around the mall, and you're going to see the people who are heavy drinkers. You're going to see people that have what they call a shuffling gait, because the cerebellum, which controls movement, is so damaged that they can't walk normally. They have to walk in these little steps or they'll fall down. And unfortunately, that's a predictor that they're soon going to die from their alcoholism. Here's that map again. Where's it getting lighter? Where's the problem getting better? This is why we're in healthcare and first responders and law enforcement. We're just like, we need everybody's help. This is all hands on deck. This is gonna be how we remember the beginning of this century, because this is the worst plague we've seen in this country. Here it is over time. This is back in the 80s, 10,000 deaths. Here's what really bothers me. See how it's kind of beginning to go up, and you get to 2005, and it just gets steeper. But now look how that curve goes up, up, up. Not only is it getting higher, it's actually accelerating. So this is from the New York Times. This is that reward pathway that gets hijacked by drugs. Doesn't matter if it's alcohol. The same, like Narcan, has another longer acting cousin called naltrexone. If you give naltrexone, you can stop alcoholism because it stops this reward pathway. And then you get these functional changes where the brain's kind of like going to sleep, which means once you start using, while you're using, it gets harder to think your way out of the problem. And you just get stuck thinking, I'll use it again and again. This is kind of a blow up of that same area. There's very specific areas, the hippocampus, the amygdala. When I talk to medical students, I throw all that stuff in, the prefrontal cortex. But we now, see, like when we were doing this is your brain on drugs, we didn't have all this figured out when I was a kid. Now we can go, this is really your brain. This is the real brain. And this is what concerns us about youth. 8th graders, look at this, 1 out of 100, OxyContin, Vicodin. But when you get up here, it's like tripled. And look at the number, 1 in 3 are using marijuana. There was a very large, reliable study done on marijuana in teenager brains. 50,000 people were in the study, and it triples the rate of schizophrenia. If any of you know somebody who struggles with schizophrenia, it's life-changing and it's lifelong. That it's usually 1%, that it goes up to 3%. Now those effects are not seen in people who wait until they're adult to use marijuana. I'm very truthful about the facts, but teenage brains are very susceptible to very toxic effects that are in marijuana. This is also about us. It's the Columbus Dispatch. This is last year, this is 2016. This is where it's concentrated in 2015. It used to be here in Portsmouth, that's where it really started, and it came over here, and now it's moved up to Montgomery County. We used to be the state that was, or the county, the worst county in the state, and the worst state in the union. This is just a map of people with addiction, and this chromosome, how much it predicts. If you have this particular chromosome affected, the closer you are to this, the higher probability. It kind of demonstrates that genetics are strongly linked to this. New York Times, June 5th. They wanted to write about the epidemic. They picked 6 counties. They're all in Ohio. Anybody hear of Warren County? Butler County? They went from, in 2010, 11 deaths to 130. Then you get over here, Summit County, big bump. This is where we were last year, just around, almost up to 300. We were projected to go to 540 deaths in our county. Odds are everyone in this room probably knows somebody or somebody who knows somebody who's died from opiates. But look what happened to Cuyahoga and Montgomery. They were behind us. They're projecting that Dayton's going to have 800 deaths. That's almost 2.5 people a day. Once this thing gets its claws into our culture, it's devastating. And the reason this is so much more dangerous in the last 5 years is synthetics. So See this tiny little pill? That's the amount of potency that morphine would have. Heroin's the slightly bigger one, but there's fentanyl, and this is how potent carfentanil is. To reverse it, it takes this much heroin to kill you, this much fentanyl, 1 grain of salt. If they slip it in, it doesn't even have to be that you bought heroin. You can buy cocaine. You can buy any other illicit drug, and they say, well, let's throw in some carfentanil because I have it and I can't really sell it as that. People know it's deadly. And so that tiny little bit, here's a penny, this tiny little bit of fentanyl, or just that red amount of carfentanil, and you're dead. I was talking to a woman who had had addiction. She relapsed. This was about 2 weeks ago. She has a little baby now. She was pregnant at the time. And when she relapsed, she went out and bought just $20, and she thought, okay, $20, that's not very much heroin. She was not used to it because she'd been in recovery. So she cut it to 1/8. She took 1/8 of a $20. She took $5. No, she took $2.50 worth. It took 5 dosages of Narcan, and she woke up in the hospital. She was trying to be careful, as if you could be careful with this stuff. Because 1 grain of salt is enough to kill you. This is what it looks like here in Hamilton County. This is the Ohio River. And you can see it's kind of in every, it's out there in Loveland, moves around. So, one of the neat things is that treatment is very effective. For every dollar we spend on treatment, we get a reduced cost in just crime and criminal justice, $4 to $7. And that doesn't, remember all that health stuff I was showing you? That doesn't even include the health costs. That's just the reduction in crime and the criminal justice. So, hopefully I haven't gone much over 20. I want to leave you with one extra thing here. Because this morning I was talking to a 12-year-old, and I invited her to come here. I don't know if she came, but she gave me something to read, or to you all. She wanted me to read this to you. So, this is a 12-year-old. And I thought, in one page, just talking to her, I thought, you have figured out everything I want to say tonight. So she wrote this. My experience with drugs was horrible. I used weed. That led me to using pills. Pills led me to trying cocaine and acid. Those were not fun. Doing drugs was the only way out. Well, that's what I thought. Doing drugs was supposedly help me, but they didn't. Doing drugs led me to trying alcohol. Alcohol numbed me, but it didn't help me. When I first tried weed, I was 12. I'm 12. I was at the age of 11. I stole my grandmother's car. That's when I went downhill. I started getting in lots of trouble. I'm not here to lecture you. I'm here to tell you my experience with weed and where it led me. It led me to the hospital and JDC and probation. Almost 5 years on probation. I just want all of you to understand the dangers. If you smoke weed, you'll never know if it could be laced or where it could be coming from. Does it have weed, have heroin, fentanyl? It's a drug that can kill you like that. A pinch could make you overdose. You may think the drug fixed you, but they really don't. They make things worse, way worse. I just want all you to know that I may not know your situation, but please don't go and do drugs. They will make it worse. I didn't believe my grandma when she said weed was a gateway drug. It is. You may not believe it, but it is. I thought that was very articulate, and I'm glad she wrote that too. Not just to me, but to you all. Thank you all very much.
Dr. Nelson, that was, wow, that was, wow. So he basically just explained to you what my brain was like. So that prefrontal area, I started doing drugs and drinking when I was a teenager. Completely shut that off. So I couldn't make rash decisions. I couldn't make good decisions up here. It was all coming from that pleasure center in the brain, which caused me to lie, cheat, steal. And to be honest with you, smoking weed as a teenager, it makes you stupid. It makes you dumb. Even today, I'll stop at a stop sign and I'm waiting for it to turn green. Yeah, weed's bad, man. It ain't cool. I'm from Montgomery County. So those numbers, like we see that every day up there. People literally, I carry Narcan in my backpack because that's like the normal thing to do. Nobody has EpiPens in Montgomery County. We all carry Narcan because people are overdosing in gas station bathrooms. Overdosing on weed because it's laced with fentanyl or carfentanil. They're putting that stuff in everything. They're stamping pills and presses saying, hey, here's some Vicodin for you, but it's got fentanyl, carfentanil in it. Anyway. The next gentleman coming up can elaborate on all that because he's going to have some numbers and some statistics for you and some real life experience because this guy is in the trenches. He sees it. I'm the guy who hopefully that when he pulls people out of the trenches, they come to like places like Lemire Healing Center saying, hey, I'm lucky to be alive. Help me. Next gentleman I'm bringing up is Chief Tom Sinans. His wide experience has allowed him to have a unique look into the heroin crisis. He's a United States Marine Corps veteran and a 24-year police veteran with the Newtown Police Department, including the last 10 years as a police chief and as a SWAT team leader veteran. He is the co-chair of the Hamilton County Heroin Coalition, speaks locally and nationally as an expert on this topic. Chief Sinan recently was a speaker with President Clinton and other distinguished panelists for the Clinton Foundation discussing the opioid crisis. His work with the coalition has been used in national and international publications and media outlets. And I'm blessed to be able to actually speak with a police officer today and not have handcuffs being put on me. This is a good dude. Please help me welcome Chief Sinans.
Appreciate you. He said this was like one of the first times he shook a cop's hand. We were getting pictures of it and everything. He's like, take pictures, take pictures. I've spoke with a doctor before, and when they were asking me about, do I need a presentation, am I going to have slides? I've seen his presentation before. I was like, trust me, he'll have it all. It'll take like 1 minute, we'll be done. I'm going to just make this short because I want to, actually what's really important to me is hearing your questions. So that's the most important part. But like you talked about the Heroin Coalition, I got involved in that. I work in a very small town, police chief in Newtown, just a very small town. I've been there for 24 years. Within 21 years, I watched an entire family die from drugs, an entire family. The mother from prescription pill abuse. The middle brother was shot and killed by crack cocaine when he was 17. The oldest brother died from a heroin overdose. The youngest brother, who I'd known since he was about 8 years old, I thought he would live forever. He wasn't the best kid in the world, but he was one of those kids, no matter what happened to him, he always kind of came out of it. About 2 weeks before Christmas in 2014, I got a call from one of my officers saying, hey, Charles overdosed. We brought him back with Narcan. He's here at the station. He's crying. He does not want to die. We're trying to get him into treatment, but he's refusing to go. We've been calling all these treatment centers trying to find a place, but we can't get him in there. What should we do? And having very few options at the time, I said, well, we got to keep him alive for at least one more night. So take him to jail. And we accomplished our mission. We kept him alive for one more night. The next day he woke up in what we call the wash of the heroin. He did what was little left, or what was a little bit left in that heroin, and he overdosed and died the next morning. I realized that in my 21 years in law enforcement, I watched an entire family, literally an entire generation, die. The oldest brother, his daughter, started at the age of 12. She was first injected at 12. She's now in her 20s. I was in Chicago giving a talk, and I was bragging about her. I was telling everybody how good she has done. She's in recovery. She's been recovered for about a year. And actually, how we found out about fentanyl was from her. She was a heavy user. And when fentanyl first hit the street, she would come up to us and talk to us about what was China White. We're like, what's China White? She's like, this is new drug, man. It's on the street called fentanyl. But back in May, she relapsed. Knock on wood, we got her into treatment, got her some care, and she's doing well right now. So let me give you a little background about heroin. That's when we started the Heroin Coalition, late December, and it formally formed in March of 2015. At the time, we were calling it an epidemic with 20 to 25 overdoses and 1 to 2 deaths every week. Now, with fentanyl and carfentanil, on average, we're at a low spot at the moment, but on average, it's about 50 to 70 overdoses and 4 to 5 people dying every week just in Cincinnati, Hamilton County area. I was going to give you the numbers, but the doctor gave them to you. They're pretty scary. 64,000 people died from overdoses last year. That's why it's kind of an epidemic. We're in this epidemic at the moment. And what's scary about this, and he hit on this, and as a law enforcement officer, and we were talking about this too, what's really scary is that you do not know what you're getting in the drug that you buy. A mother drove her 10-month-old baby to a house in Newtown. She got out of the car and collapsed. When we got up there, we recovered her, and we asked her, hey, what did you buy? We thought it was fentanyl or carfentanil. She said, no, I only bought cocaine. And what we do is we take our drugs to the coroner's office and they test them. And when we got the lab results back, she thought that she had only purchased cocaine, but it had fentanyl and carfentanil in it. We got lucky and saved her, but she's driving her car with a 10-month-old baby under the influence. What's even more sad than that, is 2 weeks later at that same house, myself and my officer stood over the body of a 26-year-old who did fentanyl and died. There's something that we got to think about this, because we think about the person that overdoses. We can judge them, we can have empathy, we can have compassion, whatever it may be. But one thing that we don't think about is the family that's impacted. So I've heard people, because I've been a big proponent of pushing out Narcan to people, and I've had people tell me, why do we do this for people? They know what they're doing. But my thing is, for every person that I stand over, there's always a mother, father, brother, sister, son, or daughter. Don't think that this issue doesn't just impact the user. Don't think that if you're just using drugs, that it only impacts you. It doesn't. It impacts an entire family, an entire generation, and an entire community. It's not just about heroin. We're focused on heroin at the moment, but like the doctor said, and Dr. Smarka can tell you, and Angela can tell you, and everyone, and Chief Wallace, everyone can tell you that we still deal with alcohol. We're starting to see a little bit of an increase in cocaine now. With the advent of Vivitrol, which helps take the opiate addiction out we were talking about, we're starting to see crack cocaine and meth come up because people are still addicted. They're just not able to do the opiates. But here's the thing about when you get drugs nowadays. These dealers are not doctors, they're not pharmacists, and they're not scientists. And as much as you may think that they're a friend of yours, they're not. They could care less about you, the person, and more about the money. So alcohol, cocaine, cigarettes, all of it plays a role in this, but I'm going to shift this from that to a couple things. First of all, the illicit drug is one of the things you got to worry about, whether it's marijuana, whether it's alcohol, whether it's crack cocaine, or whether it's heroin. But the other thing you got to think about too is prescription pills. And we become a generation that has actually, in my opinion, been addicted to prescription pills. Part of it overtly and part of it inadvertently. Some of it is good when you go to a doctor and you injure your knee, you need that opiate for the pain. But we're going to doctors for things that necessarily aren't physical pain, but emotional pain. And it's on both sides. It's not all the doctors, it's us too as a society, because we want pain to be cured quickly, whether it is physical or emotional. But some of it is our responsibility that if we're going to get prescribed something, we need to start asking questions. I went through a divorce a while back, and I went to my doctor, and my doctor said, hey, I know you're going through a divorce, you stressed out? I'm like, well, yeah, I'm stressed out. I don't know if I'm going to have any money left. He goes, well, here's 30 Xanax. This should help you out. I didn't even ask for them, but I didn't take them either. And we got to think about prescription drop-off boxes, and several police departments have those now, and that's one of the reasons is because people are starting to get more responsible with how they use prescription pills. But I want to talk to kids for a second. And I'm not going to do the normal thing that cops usually do when we talk about don't do drugs, you're going to go to jail, it's all bad. What I want to talk about is how we deal with life, how we deal with grief, how we deal with stress, how we deal with the difficult times. And I'm going to challenge parents a little bit here too. Your responsibility should be not only talking about what you do in schoolwork, but them as a person, and teach them about the bad times and how to deal with them. Teach them about resilience and how it's okay to go through these bad times and come through it. And one of the things that you really got to do is be able to talk about when you're sad and talk about when things hurt. My opinion, and this is my opinion, I'm definitely not a doctor, but I'm going off of 24 years of police work and talking to kids and seeing families. If someone would have sat down with us as kids and said, hey, here's what's going to happen in life. You're going to have good times, you're going to have bad times. And when you go through those bad times, you'll make it. You'll be okay. You don't need drugs, you don't need alcohol, you don't need all this other stuff. Matter of fact, when you have bad times, what you need is to talk to somebody. Talk to a parent, talk to a friend. Talk about those things that feel awkward and uncomfortable. Because I believe a lot of what we're dealing with, not only from addiction, a lot of it is the brain part of it, but a lot of it is how we deal with life. And no one ever teaches people about life. So I'm going to end it there because I want to make sure that we get the questions and answers. But the big thing for me is talk about grief, talk about loss, talk about how to be happy, talk about how to get through the bad times, and just talk about life.
Thanks, Chief. You know, just to piggyback off of that, I was an alcoholic and a drug addict way before, you know, those substances entered my body, the disease had already been there as a kid. See, the biggest thing that was missing for me in my life was just one major ingredient, and that was love. I couldn't get it at home. I couldn't find it through friends, so-called friends around the neighborhood. I couldn't fit in with anybody. Constantly getting bullied, made fun of. And I didn't even have this hair back then. So, but that was it, you know, that kind of was the pebble that started rolling down the hill that turned into a boulder. Because as soon as I found drugs and alcohol, I found something that I thought loved me back. But instead, what the drugs and alcohol did, it took away my job, it took away my family, it took away my house, it took everything from me. And this disease in my brain only wants to remind me of all the good times that I had. But this disease, the disease does not want to remind me of the days in the county jail I was spending, the money that I stole from my parents, the manipulating, the women that I cheated on with my wife. Makes you do things that is not you. This is serious. I wish we would have had this when I was younger. We had the DARE program. We had the Just Say No campaign with the Reagans. Yeah, but why? Why shouldn't we do it? They didn't have any. We had the scrambled egg thing, the brain, this is your brain on drugs. That was it. That was our education. You're fortunate to have this education today. I hope it's sinking in, because this is no joke. And if you're sitting in here saying, that's not going to happen to my kid, I don't have enough fingers and toes to tell you how many friends I've lost, and their parents said the same exact thing. This disease does not discriminate. It doesn't care if you're black, white, rich, poor. It will kill you, and it won't have no problem doing it. Next speaker I'm going to bring up, her name is Julie Buckner. She's a mom and a stepmom of 5 young men. Julie's youngest son, Josh, died tragically in 2014 from co-ingesting. After Josh's death, Julie and her husband established the Josh E. Levine Foundation. The nonprofit honors Josh's memory and promotes awareness about the dangers of combining alcohol and stimulants. Julie accomplishes this by reaching out to and speaking with high schools, colleges, fraternities, and sororities, and community events nationally. Please help me welcome Julie Buckner.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. How are you all tonight? So I'm the face of grief. I'm the one who's buried a child. And I am here because in July of 2014, my beautiful, bright, talented, smart, college-educated son died at the age of 22, having just graduated from the University of Michigan from an evening of going out with friends and drinking, and then snorting some Adderall and drinking some more. What I want to do with you tonight is to show you a video that CBS Sports did after they came across my story and Josh's story. A producer contacted me and wanted to do a feature on him. So I want to show you this video. It's about 8 minutes long. I think it's pretty terrific. And it's also the message of the power of one, because this was one producer who said, I want to do this story, and took it to one mom who's reaching out to others. So I'm going to show you this video, which I think is great, and then I want us to have a little more of a conversation for you to see one kid making one mistake and to talk more about Josh and some other things. So I'm going to hit it, and then we're going to talk some more.
I told him I loved him, but there was just no activity. He was just lying there. And I took one look and he just was gone. He just was gone. It was just, there was...
This is a lady who's talking about her son, her child, who was once in this locker room, who was once sitting here like you guys, as I'm talking to you guys, that's no longer here with us today. All right, Miss Julie Buckner, give her a hand.
Hi, guys. Hello. So some of you may know Josh's story, but I'm going to go back over it a little bit. Josh grew up in West Bloomfield, Michigan, a suburb of Detroit. Both his father and I went to University of Michigan, so he grew up a Wolverine fan from day one, going to football games as a little boy.
It was always Michigan, 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 and you just kind of live and die by it. And we would know in our house that if Michigan won that day, we were going to have a good rest of the day, and if they didn't, watch out.
Josh played varsity baseball, basketball, and football. Was he the best on the team? No. Was I immensely proud of him? Absolutely.
He didn't start at quarterback, but he prepared like the starter, and I think that was his personality.
He had the opportunity to go on and go to University of Michigan, where Coach Bellamy was instrumental in getting him a position to be one of the managers for the Michigan football team.
Julie and Josh drove up. They met legendary John Falk, the longtime equipment manager at Michigan. And from that moment, I remember Big Johnny calling me and saying, hey, I want to hire your kid.
First year was a lot of laundry, and he was not into that. So if I can go be a field manager and help these guys warm up and really be out there, that would be something.
I asked Coach Falk, I said, I need a guy who is very persistent, somebody highly reliable. And Josh was filling, I think, balls at the time, filling the bag with balls. And he said, hey, Coach Jackson. I said, what's up, man? So what's your name? He said, Josh. I said, I got a son named Josh. I said, John, give me him. The most reliable manager I ever had. You can ask my sons, you ask the players, you ask anybody who was involved, was Josh Levine.
Josh was working with the running backs, so we got to know Josh really well. He'd always make sure that we were doing our best, and he'd get on us if we weren't doing something right.
On game day, I would go out there, and when I'm warming up, sometimes when I don't finish to the end zone, Josh would be there, like, he'll point to the goal line, like, finish here. And that's kind of what we built.
I would give him a little card with all my drill work set up, and he'll be sitting in my office. And Coach, what does this mean? How far should this cone be? How wide is this bag? How tall? What bags do I use? Nobody else cared that much. And I've had all these managers over 23 years at the University of Michigan, and they couldn't compare to him.
He loved being out there, laughing with the players, fooling around with the players, being on the field and actually having a physical impact on something, a practice, on the game, on some type of meeting. That was everything to him.
He was more than just a person helping out. He was truly a part of this team, so when we won that game, he won it as well.
After graduation, within a month of that, he got a sales job that took him to Chicago.
He was so excited to be living in Chicago and near each other, and he definitely knew how to party and was social and would go out. I don't know that his drinking was excessive compared to, the average fraternity guy.
He was letting loose on a Saturday night, as a lot of kids do. He went to a few bars, definitely was drinking at the bars, but then they came back to an apartment where some kids were living. Somebody brought out some Adderall and crushed it, and he just wanted to stay awake. That was his goal. He had no clue that what he was doing could be fatal. And then he was walking back to his brand new apartment where I think maybe he'd spent one night, and he collapsed on the sidewalk a few blocks from his apartment.
It doesn't feel real, and each step is in slow motion. How am I in this hospital? How am I identifying him? How am I talking to these doctors? How am I watching my mom enter this hospital room? How are you picking out caskets? How am I riding in this limo in this hearse 40 minutes to a cemetery? How am I shoveling dirt on him? It's terrible. It's just terrible.
And the stimulant of the Adderall with the depressant of the alcohol was a perfect storm. Boom. And it triggered a cardiac episode. So they had kept him on life support until I could get there for us to see him and say goodbye. To think that I'm never going to see him again, I'm never going to hear his voice. I'm never going to walk him down the aisle. I'm never going to experience anything with him anymore. It's just horrendous.
It was really hard for our team because of how close our team was with him and how close our team was with managers. When he passed away, we lost a part of Michigan football.
I remember the prayer we especially had it as a team, and then we broke it down into the running backs, and we made sure that we were going to do whatever we could to stay together and especially make it to the funeral.
We should pledge, each of us and all of us, to do whatever we can to try to make sure that this doesn't happen to anyone else, so that Josh's life becomes a blessing.
I couldn't let his life and his death go in vain, and I would say it was probably within days that I knew I would just have to do something. Once I learned, exactly what had happened. I knew about Adderall being abused as a study aid. I had no idea that it was being misused as a party drug.
She's going to be speaking at schools, and anywhere that'll listen to her, she will be there, and there to tell her story and Josh's story.
I think it's going to help people understand and realize how dangerous it can be and how you can be having fun and just having a great time doing it in 1 minute and then, not be here the next.
The last thing I want is for another tragedy to happen to another family like what we've been through. You all can be a part of the solution. There's not a minute of the day that goes by without my thinking about him. It's just something that will forever be with me. I said once that my heart was shattered. It's being pieced together, but as anything that's broken, there will always be those lines that are not totally repaired. Pretty great, huh? So I want you to get a real feel for Josh and what we're talking about, because he could have been sitting here with so many of you high school kids that are here. This was the kid, like we were saying, that was a 3-sport varsity athlete: baseball, basketball, football. He was in National Honor Society. He was in DECA. He went on, like we said, to the University of Michigan. He graduated on time. He was in a fraternity. He was also a bartender at the most popular bar on campus. He was what I called the mayor of Ann Arbor. We couldn't walk more than 5 feet when we were on campus without him giving a hug to somebody, a high five, having a conversation. This was a kid, I want to make it clear, he was not a drug addict. He was not an alcoholic. This was a kid who, yeah, he was a frat boy and he could drink. But as my older kids did, I was pretty confident that he would outgrow it, He wasn't given the opportunity. So I want to talk to you about a few things. As it was already mentioned, the issues with alcohol, as much as we talk about opioids, alcohol still is the number one in terms of all the ramifications that can come along with this. In Josh's case, he was drinking, but in that case, he went to a party and a girl brought out some Adderall. And so just to clarify, normally we don't have that much time. Normally I would ask you questions and I would have you participate with me, but I'm just going to yap along in the interest of time. So Adderall is used if you have ADHD. And if you have ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and it's been prescribed and you're taking your own prescription and you're using it appropriately, that's fine. That's not what was going on here. So there are two ways in which Adderall can be misused. And the one way that kids will do it is as a study aid. There's the misconception that you're going to perform better on exams if you take some Adderall, that you'll study better, you're going to do better, you'll do better on the ACT or the SAT. There's zero proof that you'll do better. But it's speed. So you'll be wired, so you'll stay up later. And then that, from that standpoint, yeah, you'll stay awake, but there's no proof that you'll actually perform better. In a study that I read that was talking about high school misuse of Adderall, it was saying that kids who misuse Adderall, 80% of those kids come from suburban schools. They're A and B students. They're college bound. They're very driven. This is the audience that I'm talking to tonight, right? Those are the kids that tend to go for the Adderall, and they'll tend to borrow it, to ask kids to give it to them. They'll try to buy it from kids that are ADHD and say, give me some of your pills, and it's very widely used. So that's the one way it's used as a study aid. And guess what? Those kids then go on to these high-pressure schools, such as the University of Michigan or the Ohio State University, and then it gets more widely used, and it's very easy to get. And then those kids go on to high-pressure jobs. And that's why now there are actually more prescriptions written for adults than kids for Adderall. And a speaker that I heard that was a pharmacist, the director for Rite Aid pharmacies in Michigan, he was saying in Michigan that Adderall is the second most overprescribed drug next to opioids. Can you hear me? Can you fix me? All right, I'll turn it off. Now when I talk with my hands, it'll really go flying. Debbie, you're losing me, man. All right, so which do you want me to do? Is it really bugging you that much? Can I keep going? In the interest of time, what do you want me to do? I'm fine. Let me just keep going. Oh, now you turned it, okay, it's back on. Okay, so what he was saying is that Adderall is the second most overprescribed drug next to the opioids. And the issue with it, too, is that it's a subjective diagnosis. So you don't take a blood test, you don't have an x-ray. It's something that you go in and say, doctor, I'm having these different things going on, and there are different tests and so on. So there are more adults that are trying to get this drug. Now, so that's one way that it's misused, like at the high school and college level and so on, is as a study aid. The other way, I didn't find out until after I spoke with the Cook County coroner. Those are words I shouldn't even be saying. But the Cook County coroner called me and asked if Josh was ADHD, and I said no. And she said, well, did he take Adderall or Ritalin? I said no. She said there were amphetamines in his system. When I talked to my older son, Andrew, that you saw in the video, he said, Mom, I didn't want to tell you, but this is something that kids are doing. And I was absolutely floored. I had never heard about this. but it's very prevalent to be used as a party drug. And it's very prevalent, like on a football game day, for kids to snort some Adderall and then they'll keep drinking. And here's what it'll do. It'll do two things, and this is what happened to Josh. Because in Josh's case, he just wanted to stay awake. It was really late at night. He just wanted to hang out with friends. So the one thing that'll do if you snort Adderall and then drink is that it's going to keep you so that you're not going to pass out or fall asleep if you've had too much to drink. And falling asleep or passing out is your body's natural way of kind of protecting you, right? You can't have more to drink if you've passed out or fallen asleep. So it keeps you awake because it's a stimulant. It's speed. The other thing that it will do is make you feel like you're not getting drunk. So you feel fine, but you're not fine. So what happened with him is that his blood alcohol level was just going up and up and up and up and up. I think of it like as a cash register, and it was just going up. So what happened was that the Adderall, because it is a stimulant, it triggered an irregular heartbeat, I guess, so it triggered a heart attack. And in his case, here was this good kid walking home by himself, collapsed on the sidewalk. Somebody robbed him of his wallet. He had left his phone at the apartment where he had met with the kids, and the girl brought out the Adderall. Somebody else did call the squad. After some machinations, my older son figured out where he was, but he was in the hospital on life support as a John Doe. I got a call at 6:15 that Sunday night. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know what. I got a call from Andrew from the video. He said, "Mom, we found the Josh. He's in the ICU and it's really bad." I didn't know what really bad meant. I didn't know if he had been stabbed, hit by a car, robbed, beaten up. I had no clue. All I knew is that my son that I had just spoken to the day before, that morning before, and my last words to him were, "I love you, honey." And he said, "I love you, Mom." All I knew was that he was in the ICU. And I drove 300 miles, my husband and I drove 300 miles to find him lying there. And I walked into that ICU from here to here. And I saw him just hooked up to those tubes. And I took one look and I knew he was gone. He was brain dead. This kid had everything going for him. This kid was like all of you. He was like all of you. He was, he didn't get into any trouble. He was my toughest of my five. He would, yank my chain the most of all the boys. But he had that kind heart and that kind soul, and he was helpful, and he was excited about becoming a teacher, and he was robbed of that opportunity. So in my grief, I need to reach out to all of you. My life will never be the same, and none of you want to ever be in the footsteps that I'm in of having experienced bearing a child, and so needlessly, and so unnecessarily, and so stupidly. So I want to give that message to you of this is just that regular kid who one night went out with friends, was drinking, made one stupid choice. And now I'm looking at that video, and I just want to finish by saying that, we were saying I'm not going to be able to walk him down the aisle. My older son, Andrew, that you saw in the video, is now engaged. And he's getting married in June. And Josh should be his best man. And Josh should be at that wedding and doing all the best man things with his brother. And instead, it's just going to be his memory, and it's just going to be, in Judaism, in Judaism you have the chuppah, which is the wedding canopy, and in that canopy there should be a tallis, which is the prayer shawl. So Josh's presence will be there because we're going to have his tallis as in the chuppah for the prayer shawl. So this is a way that at least his brother can be there one way or another. My messages are so many, and we'll talk more in the next segment. But for this message, I don't even know what I want to say to you, except just remember that it can happen to anybody. I never in my wildest dreams thought that I would bury a child, particularly from something like this. And I want to thank you all so much for being here tonight, for coming out in the cold. And Debbie, you're amazing. And I look forward to continuing the conversation. And let me just give a plug. If any of you are from high schools and you're willing to, if you'd like to have me come speak, I would love to be able to have the opportunity to just speak at any of your schools. That would be really rewarding for me. So thank you, thank you, thank you so much.
Wow. See, I need to hear stories like that, because it's a reminder for me to keep doing what I'm doing today. Thank you, Julie. You're amazing for sharing that. Thank you, everybody. Dr. Nelson, you're so shiny right here. That's good. That's a good look for you. Chief, I don't know what we do here. It's good. So, actually, what we're getting ready to do is we're going to have a breakout session. So what's going to happen is all the adults, parents will stay in here, preferably to move closer. You'll be in here with Chief Sinan and Dr. Nelson. And all the younger folk, you can actually go through that back door there, or if you wanted to grab a few refreshments and then go through that way. Julie and I will be in there, and we're going to allow you to ask questions, which we encourage that, because if we don't ask questions, we're not going to know anything. We're not going to learn anything, or even feedback you may have, whatever it is. Also, just a reminder, the evaluation sheets on the table, make sure everybody's filling those out, add your 2 cents, like don't ever have the guy with the mohawk back here again, he's weird. Or encourage me to come back, that's cool too, because I don't have any friends, so I'm also available to go to schools and hang out with kids just to feel accepted, so that works. Big shout out to Lemire Healing Center and Jewish Family Service. Without those two, we wouldn't be here. And I encourage everybody to stop by that table out there where Lemire Healing Center has some things set up and get some information. Because this is kind of the norm today. We're starting to, it's getting to the point to where we're knowing somebody like right next door, somebody in our family who's affected by this disease. So I'm grateful for Lemire. That place is truly special. So is this place. And it's beautiful. Wow, it's beautiful here. If I was homeless, I would totally I would just sleep in the parking lot and I'd be like, yes. So, Debbie, will you stand up real quick? Please? Pretty please? Can we give Debbie one more hand for helping put this together? There's an army of them that did this. Nice job. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and split up, and parents, adults in here, kids through that door or through that door. Thank you.